courtroom outburst takes a shocking turn as the defendant is accused of threatening a witness. The judge reviews the allegations and delivers a $75,000 bond with strict conditions. What happens next is intense. Watch until the end.
Have a seat.
All right, good afternoon. All right, Mr. Rankin, why don't you hold off? I'm going to give an instruction.
Oh, sure.
At this point.
Yep.
So, members of the jury, I just want to give you an instruction. It's one I probably should have given a little bit earlier in the trial as well. It's going to apply to this witness. It applies to a number of witnesses who testified earlier, and it's going to apply to a number of witnesses who testify after. And it's in regards to expert witnesses. All right. So, generally, in cases that are tried in our courts, witnesses may testify only to facts that are within their own personal knowledge. Right? That's things that they've personally seen, heard, or felt. However, in a variety of cases, issues arise that are beyond the experiences of laypersons. In those type of cases, we allow a person with specialized training or experience called an expert witness to testify, and to testify not only to facts but also to opinions and the reasons for their opinions on issues that are within that witness's field of expertise and are relevant material to the case. Because a particular witness has specialized training and experience in their field, does not put that witness on a higher level than any other witness, and you are to treat the so-called expert witness just like you would treat any other witness. In other words, as with any other witness, it's completely up to you to decide whether you accept the testimony of any expert witness, including the opinions that they give. It's also entirely up to you to decide whether you accept the facts that are relied on by the expert, and to decide what conclusions, if any, you draw from the witness's testimony. You're free to reject the testimony and opinion of such a witness in whole or in part if you determine that the opinion is not based on sufficient education or experience, that the testimony of the witness is motivated by some bias or interest in the case. You must keep firmly in mind that you alone decide what the facts are. So if you conclude that an expert's opinion is not based on the facts as you find those facts to be, then you may reject the testimony and the opinion of the expert in whole or in part. You must remember that expert witnesses do not decide cases, juries do. So in the last analysis, an expert witness is like any other witness in the sense that you alone make the judgment about how much credibility and weight you give to that expert's testimony and what conclusions you draw from the testimony. All right? And I'll go into that a little bit more at the end when I go into the more extensive instructions that I'll give you at the end of the trial. All right, Mr. Rankin.
Afternoon.
Afternoon.
Can you tell us your name and spell your name?
It's Michael Wolfovich. It's V as in Victor, U-L, F as in Frank, O, V as in Victor, I-C-H.
And what do you do for work, sir?
I'm an emergency medicine doctor. I work full-time at Newton Wellesley Hospital.
Newton Wellesley?
Yes.
And can you tell us are you board certified, sir?
I am. I'm board certified in emergency medicine.
And that would be by the American Board of Emergency Medicine?
Correct.
And how long have you been practicing emergency medicine?
I did 3 years of residency, and this is my 13th year as a full-time attending.
And you're presently employed, where is it?
Newton Wellesley Hospital primarily, and then I do some additional shifts at Emerson Hospital in Concord.
How about medical school? Where'd you go to med school?
St. Louis University School of Medicine.
And what year did you graduate?
2011.
Obviously licensed in the Commonwealth.
Yes, sir.
In the course of your training and experience, sir, do you work full-time in a particular field of medicine?
Just emergency medicine. So basically we see any and all comers, anything from ankle sprains to traumas.
Okay. Did I ask you to review some documents regarding this particular case involving Lindsay Clancy?
You did. You asked me to review the...
Very what you reviewed.
Oh, sorry. You asked me to review the photos from the crime scene, and then the emergency medical records from South Shore Hospital, Brigham and Women's Hospital, and then the records from her hospital stay at Brigham and Women's Hospital.
So in reviewing all of those various hospital records, sir, you're aware that on January 24th of 2023, she initially was transported to South Shore Hospital. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And can you tell the jurors what's treatment she received at the South Shore Hospital, briefly?
So she arrived with a GCS of 10, meaning she was not really very responsive.
Let me interrupt you just because that. What did you say? A G6?
GCS, Glasgow Coma Scale.
Okay, slow down, because I don't understand. What is a GCS?
It's a Glasgow Coma Scale. It's a series of things that we look at to determine how responsive somebody is. You know, whether their eyes are opening spontaneously, whether they're able to speak on their own, and whether you're able to understand what they're saying, and then how much, if at all, they're moving, whether they're moving spontaneously, whether they can follow commands, that kind of thing.
Okay. So the Glasgow Coma Scale GCS of 10, what does that tell you as an emergency room doctor?
Tells us that she was not very responsive on arrival. It sounds like she was not speaking intelligibly, and the doctors at South Shore Hospital were concerned about her ability to maintain her own airway and made the decision to intubate her, which means putting a breathing tube down her throat into her lungs and placing her on a ventilator and sedating her.
Was she also what would be, I guess, referred to as hypothermic?
She was.
What does that mean?
Means that her body temperature was below what's considered normal. So in her case, her core body temperature was, I believe, 82.1 degrees, which would put her into severe hypothermia.
And did you note that she was tachycardic and hypotensive?
Yes.
What did that mean?
So it means that her heart rate was above 100, and hypotensive means that her blood pressure was below what is considered normal.
And South Shore Hospital, were they able to stabilize her?
It sounds like they were able to stabilize her by placing a breathing tube in her neck, in her throat, to help with her breathing. And then they basically proceeded to obtain a bunch of imaging, started her on medications to sedate her and artificially raise her blood pressure. They started working on rewarming her. And then in conjunction with the trauma team there, they made the decision that she would be better served at a hospital with a higher level of care.
Okay. And can you tell us what the injuries were that she presented herself with to the South Shore Hospital?
So there were multiple injuries. She had lacerations to bilateral wrists.
When you say lateral, what does that mean?
Bilateral, both sides. So she had a laceration both to her left wrist and to her right wrist, and then multiple superficial lacerations as well. And then she also had multiple superficial lacerations to both sides of her neck, the front of her neck, and two deeper lacerations to the sides of her neck.
So when you say superficial lacerations and then deeper lacerations, do you recall what's the standard? What do you look for in something like that?
So it's tough. Everybody will describe them a little bit differently. In her case, I would describe multiple superficial lacerations, which would typically mean kind of scrapes on the surface of the skin, nothing that actually gets through the full thickness of the skin. And then she also had full thickness lacerations, meaning that she made it all the way through the skin into the subcutaneous tissue, the fatty tissue. And then you would need to describe it further if any additional structures were injured, which in her case they were not.
Now, in your experience for a number of years in the emergency room, have you had occasion to treat people that have tried to commit suicide or successfully committed suicide by cutting their throat?
Multiple times.
Multiple times. And can you tell us, in your opinion, to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, sir, as to whether or not this injury or these injuries that you observe were consistent with what you've seen in other suicide attempts?
Sustained.
Well, can you tell us, did that look like an effort to pretend or fake a suicide?
Sustained.
Well, when you looked at the injuries, did you make a determination that they appeared to have some impact on the human body of Ms. Clancy?
Yes.
What was that?
They were consistent with self-injurious behavior. The intent, I can't gauge, but...
Anything further?
Okay.
Next question.
Yep, thank you. How about the wrist? What did you observe about the wrist injuries, sir?
So she had two full-thickness lacerations, one on the left, one on the right.
What does that mean?
Means that she made it all the way through the epidermis and the dermis, which is what makes up the skin in the wrist, and into the fatty tissue, which is the next layer.
Okay. Are you familiar in your experience, sir, with hesitation wounds in a suicide attempt?
Yes, to some extent.
What does that mean?
Means typically that they're more kind of subtle, weaker attempts to hurt yourself, not necessarily anything that's going to be deep, to the structures of the skin, but more just scrapes along the surface.
Okay, and you noticed some of those on the neck area as well, is that correct?
There were multiple of those on both the neck and the wrists.
As it relates to the injuries to the wrists, did you observe any vascular structures or penetration of the cervical, the fascia?
There was not.
Okay. What other injuries did you recall from reviewing the medical records?
So she also had multiple fractures in her cervical spine, which are the vertebrae that make up her neck, including what's called a burst fracture of C1, and then other fractures of C4. She also had fractures of multiple levels of the thoracic spine. I believe she had multiple transverse process fractures on both the right and left.
What does that mean, transverse fractures?
Transverse processes are lateral projections, basically projections that go sideways off of the bone that allow the ribs to articulate, connect with the spine, and they also allow muscles to connect, and they help support the basically overall ring structure of the spinal canal.
And was she then transported by med flight or life flight to a Boston hospital?
She was.
What does that tell you as an emergency surgeon when someone's transported by med flight or life flight?
Typically means that her injuries are felt to be severe enough that she needs immediate intervention and further treatment, that the hospital that is basically necessitating the transport is saying that they cannot provide at their facility.
She was then transported to what hospital?
Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston.
She was admitted to what unit?
Surgical ICU.
And you had a chance to review all those medical records as well?
I did.
Did she suffer a particular event that night that you recall from looking at the records?
She did shortly after arriving in the surgical ICU. It sounds like they were moving her, and when they moved her, they noticed that her blood pressure dropped, her pulse became faint, and subsequently she actually suffered a complete cardiac arrest and required 2 rounds of cardiopulmonary resuscitation with compressions and medications before she was able to be revived.
And she also, to your knowledge, had suffered significant hemorrhage and had to have a fairly massive blood transfusion?
Yes, they placed chest tubes, which are basically plastic tubes that go into the chest cavity on both sides, and had about 300 cc's of blood come out from each side, and there was also noted to be significant hemorrhage around the spine and into the mediastinum, which is the portion of the chest that houses a lot of the organs like your esophagus, your trachea, blood vessels, that kind of thing.
Now, if there's a fracture, a serious fracture to, I believe it's C1, does that interfere possibly with a person's ability to breathe?
It does.
And how does that work?
So if you have a fracture that affects the spinal cord above a certain level, typically above the 3rd cervical vertebrae, it basically removes your ability to initiate breathing on your own. Your 3rd, 4th, and 5th cervical vertebrae, the nerves that lead from there, are the ones that are responsible for telling your diaphragm to go up and down and help you breathe. And so if you lose the ability to send that signal down to your diaphragm, you lose the ability to breathe.
Now, as it relates to your review of the medical records and review of the history, are you aware of the mechanism of the injuries that she suffered that you just described for the jury?
I am.
Tell us what that was, to your knowledge.
That she went out of her 2nd-story window.
And going out of the window, obviously, did she strike the ground, or?
She did.
And that caused the injuries, the mechanism of injury?
Yes, it's consistent with all of her injuries.
Now, with your experience, sir, with, as you indicated, dealing with people in the emergency room and treating people that have been involved with sequential acts of self-harm, do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty as an emergency board-certified physician as to the effect of the combination of the multiple sequential injuries that you saw?
Objection.
Can I see counsel at sidebar? Just
I can withdraw it, Judge. I'll withdraw it. Just thank you very much.
No questions.
all right. Thank you, doctor.
Thank you.
All right, counsel. Could I see it sidebar?
Okay.